My name is Daniel Riker. I'm 39 now. 5 years ago, everything I knew, everything the world believed about my life, came to an abrupt end. It happened on her birthday. Elaine had always known how to make an entrance. She radiated charm and control, wearing her self-assurance like fine jewelry. People gravitated toward her, drawn in like moths to her flame of wit and glamour. She used to say I was her anchor. Maybe that was the first falsehood. We built what I thought was our future together. Countless late nights planning her boutique, bickering over contractor bids, poring over supplier lists, hashing out brand ideas. When her funding options dried up, I didn't hesitate. I emptied out my inheritance. No prenup, no financial safety net, just love, or maybe it was just blind faith. That night, we were surrounded by friends, family, investors, and those who only knew the polished version of her that she wanted them to see. That's when she did it, slapped me across the face. Not in a moment of fury, but with deliberate calculation, like an executioner drawing a blade in slow motion. It wasn't about rage. It was about spectacle. No words. Just a sharp crack that said everything louder than any accusation could. I didn't respond. I didn't yell or ask why. I calmly stood, straightened my collar, and left the table. I walked away from the man who had trusted too much. No suitcase, no place to go, no plan. That night, I slept in a rented car parked outside a grocery store. I had no money, no reputation, no defense. Elaine had made sure of that. The narrative she spun was masterful, like something out of designer catalog. She accused me of cheating, of stealing, of hitting her. She used every accusation like a finely honed weapon. But what she didn't realize, what she could never have guessed, was that I had already started preparing for my escape. Something had felt wrong for months, those late-night meetings, the vague texts, the emotional distance. I didn't know what was coming, but my instincts kicked in. I started putting up safeguards, not to protect my heart, but to protect my future. I opened a shell corporation, created a private bank account, and began laying the foundation for a new identity. The night after she publicly humiliated me, I transferred what was left of my funds into that account and disappeared. No explanations, no farewells. I faded into background and began piecing myself back together. Not as Daniel Riker, the husband and investor, but as someone else entirely. Someone calculated. Careful. That first year was brutal. I used fake names to take on any job I could find, bussing tables, cleaning offices at night. During the day, I studied. I dove into corporate law, digital banking systems, and how shell companies really work. I learned how to move money discreetly, how to obscure ownership, and how to trace financial footprints. I made my mind a weapon. By year 2, I used my shell company to buy a struggling tech security business. I turned it around, sold it for 5 times its value. Then I did it again and again. Each deal was another brick in my empire. Meanwhile, Elaine's boutique was booming. She played the wrong woman flawlessly. She expanded, franchised. Her social media feeds glowed with artificial joy. But success has a way of making people careless. 2 years before I made my return, I formed another shell company, Taylor Holdings. Slowly, silently, it began buying up the debt tied to the parent company of her boutique. I moved through intermediaries, masked behind layers of anonymity. By the time she realized what was happening, it was already too late. Everything she believed she owned had slipped from her hands. 5 years after the night she slapped me, I received an invite to the Fairfield Elite Retreat, a high-tier investor event, the kind of place Elaine would do anything to be seen. I RSVP'd under the name Listen Brandt. Just as I arrived, my phone lit up with a headline. Local fashion icon Ella Beaumont faces bankruptcy and fraud charges. Her stores shuttered, her assets frozen. I didn't smile out of spite that evening. What I felt wasn't revenge, it was closure. She didn't recognize me at first. I was wearing a tailored Italian suit, my beard neatly trimmed, my posture different. But when our eyes locked across the candlelit banquet table, arranged exactly like the table at her birthday dinner, she froze. She was seated directly across from me. I was the guest of honor. Elaine noticed the eyes first, Then came the dawning realization. After dinner, she found me alone in the hallway. The confidence, the glamour, all gone. She looked pale and shaken. "It's you," she whispered. "You did this." I met her gaze without flinching. "You destroyed me," she added. "No," I replied. "That was all you. I just handed you the rope." She trembled as I gave her a folder full of evidence, transaction records, video footage, legal filings, every signature, every dollar moved, every law she broke, all neatly documented. "Why?" she choked out. "We could have fixed this. You shattered me in front of everyone I loved. You painted me as a monster. This is justice." 2 days later, her name was everywhere. Her business crumbled. Her endorsements evaporated. She became a warning tale in every industry blog. I didn't celebrate. No toast, no social media bravado. That night, I simply walked through the streets of my old neighborhood, hands in my coat pockets, the wind cold against my skin. Some scars never heal, but they thicken. I still see that slap sometimes when I close my eyes. For a long time, it haunted me. Now, it reminds me of who I became, the man no one saw coming. Not vengeful, not loud, just ready. I spent the first week sleeping in my car, the only thing she hadn't gotten her hands on. I parked in quiet residential streets, curled up under a blanket, staring at the ceiling of that rental, wondering how things had come to this. Every ache in my back reminded me of the luxury mattress we used to share in our penthouse. Now it was hers. Grief gave way to focus. I reached out to an old college buddy, a guy I once helped stay out of academic probation. He owed me. He got me a freelance data analysis gig, remote, discreet, and under a fake name. The money wasn't great, but it fed me and fueled my car. That first paycheck felt like fresh air after being underwater too long. Next, I activated the LLC I quietly registered months before. I didn't even know why I'd done it back then. Just a gut feeling. I renamed it, built a whole new identity online, and began retraining myself. Cybersecurity, business law, behavioral psychology. I turned my fury into a syllabus. Elaine expected me to crumble. Instead, I evolved. Through dummy accounts and pseudonyms, I began acquiring small shares in companies linked to her investors and to her new boyfriend. I began tracing shell companies connected to his investment portfolio. And when I discovered that Elaine's boutique was being quietly funded through loans routed by him, I saw the path forward. The beauty of finance lies in its precision. It rewards strategy, not sentiment. I learned to master both. My aim wasn't immediate destruction. I wasn't seeking a dramatic downfall. I wanted slow decay, a quiet undoing. Within 2 years, I acquired a 38% stake in a holding company that, unbeknownst to most, controlled her boutique's entire supplier chain. Hidden deep in their contracts, obscure beneath pages of dense legal wording, was a clause. One sentence granting authority to increase prices under new ownership. I activated it. Overnight, her costs skyrocketed. Elaine went on the offensive, giving interviews, calling it sabotage, blaming inflation. I watched as she flailed in front of cameras, her investors abandoning ship. She never once suspected me. By year 3, I had moved across the country, taken a new identity, Luca Brandt, and launched a firm specializing in distressed asset turnarounds. We buy companies on the brink, make them profitable, and sell them off for a gain. One of those acquisitions, her boutique's parent company. Desperate for a lifeline, drowning in debt, she never bothered to read the fine print. The purchase offer came from a proxy firm, a boardroom of ruthless professionals, paid to represent me, signed the deal as I watched silently through one-way glass. In that moment, everything she'd built on my back became mine. She was bankrupt within months. But even that didn't feel like enough. What she'd done wasn't just about money. It was deeply personal, precise, cutting. She betrayed me in front of the same crowd that once toasted our anniversaries and called us #PowerCouple on social media. The humiliation she inflicted was surgical. I waited until the Fairfield Elite Investment Retreat, our hometown, 5 years, nearly to the day. That's where I made my return. She didn't recognize me when I walked into the estate. The tailored suit, the confident stride, the neatly trimmed beard. But my eyes, those never change. And when they announced me as a keynote speaker, she gasped mid-sip and nearly choked on her champagne. Luca Brandt, entrepreneur, turnaround expert, and the man who had saved the Tay Group. That name meant everything, because the Tay Group owned her boutique, and I was the one behind it all. Her hands began to shake. At dinner, I sat directly across from her, the ghost of a man she once erased. I said nothing, not until dessert was cleared. Later, she found me alone, away from the crowd. Her face was pale, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's you," she said. "You're the one who did this." I leaned in, my voice steady. "You shattered me in front of everyone I cared about. This," I said, nodding gently, "this is symmetry." She stuttered, asking why, pleading. "We could have fixed it." I shook my head. "You didn't just betray me. You erased me. This wasn't vengeance. This was justice." I handed her a slim envelope. Inside were documents, evidence of tax fraud, unauthorized transactions, incriminating emails, all time-stamped. Every detail checked out. Every piece legally obtained. Every signature? Hers. I didn't need to ruin her. She'd done that all on her own. 2 days later, she was arrested. The media swarmed. Headlines screamed, "Local fashion queen falls from grace. Ella Beaumont indicted for financial misconduct." From catwalks to courtrooms, the whispers turned to pointed judgment. Sponsors disappeared. Her inner circle evaporated. Elaine vanished. No public statement. No apology. Just silence. And me? I kept walking. There was a lightness in my steps I hadn't felt in years. I breathed easier. I didn't smile often, but when I did, it came from somewhere real. Some people chase power. Others long for peace. I built both from the wreckage of a single moment, the sting of her hand across my face. The day her arrest at the news, the fallout was swift. Those once drawn to her orbit fled. Her face was scrubbed from billboards and magazine covers, replaced with court sketches and media speculation. Twitter exploded with takedowns. Legal analysts debated her sentence. Her legacy was scorched, but I didn't celebrate. No posts, no victory laps, no headlines. I vanished again. I moved to a quiet coastal town, far from the noise. I launched a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs, discreetly, under aliases. I funded scholarships. I gave guest lectures behind pseudonyms. I made sure others had what I hadn't. A second chance, a safety net. Elaine had always needed to be admired. I'd learned to thrive in obscurity. Every now and then, I'd hear rumors that she was using an assumed name, that she was taking work beneath her old status, that she broke down during job interviews when people recognized her face, that her old designer circle had blocked her number, that even her family stopped bringing up her name. In a city she once ruled, she had become a ghost. And I was alive. 5 years after her arrest, I returned to the estate in Fairfield where it had all fallen apart. But this time wasn't about payback. It was a foreclosure sale. There was a new retreat, new money, new stars. But a few familiar faces remembered. I heard them whisper, "That's him. That's the one who brought her down." I didn't confirm it. I didn't deny it. I simply smiled. After my keynote speech, a young woman approached me. She said she'd follow my story, that her ex had put her through something similar, that hearing my journey gave her hope. And that's when it clicked. This story was never just about Elaine, or revenge, or reputation. It was about endurance, rebirth, quiet strength. That night, I left without fanfare. Not like 5 years ago, when I walked away from a dinner table humiliated and broken. This time, I wasn't leaving pain behind. I was walking into peace.